as well. That is the reason why I'm making this video. The end of the year is approaching. It's time to set up goals for 2025, and I feel like now is the perfect time for this video to be released. So, I will not ramble anymore. Let's dive into it. First, I'll tell you how I ended up in a situation where I no longer felt happy, despite, well, sometimes, okay, life has its ups and downs, but most importantly, I no longer felt happy even when I've achieved something, even when something great happened. And I'll tell you how I am trying to get out of this state of mind. So, 2 years ago, I was very unhappy in life. I just objectively recognized the fact that my life was not that great, that I made certain decisions that led me to that place. Also, if you're hearing the loud sound, that is the wind. Okay, it's very strong today. Just wanted to point that out. And I, most importantly, even if I will not talk about personal relationships, I just did not really feel successful, and I thought that success equals happiness. Regardless, even if I will just completely omit the happiness factor, I just wanted to be more successful, and so I have put up a plan, this huge plan, that is maybe 5 years long, that would lead me to more success. Now, the first 6 months of that plan were honestly pretty great. I felt happy that I'm finally doing something with my life. And after that, I started to slack a little bit. I found it so difficult to find motivation. All of a sudden, just the thought of me working towards something was just not enough. And it became this vicious cycle where I just did not want to actually progress. Yes, I wanted to be more successful, but I've really struggled with taking the actual steps. And even if I took a step towards a better future, I no longer felt happy. And even this year, I feel like I've noticed this year especially, even when something great happened, a new achievement, I did not care. Also this year a lot of bad things happened. So this state of not being able to feel joy is called anhedonia. Now this state of mind can be associated with certain mental illnesses, but you don't actually have to have those illnesses to feel anhedonic. Okay? This also describes this state of just reduced motivation to do something, right? And honestly, all of those pieces of advice I was given were just not exactly helpful. I've recognized that the things that made me happy before were just not making me happy anymore, such as working out. Working out used to make me feel so happy. Now, even if I worked out, it was just like, so, like, what's the point? It doesn't make me happy anymore. So I wanted to this will make so much sense. I promise you. It was like, wow, this is true. So they took two people and they let them perform a certain activity that normally you would feel joy from. I already talked about working out, so I'm going to say working out now. There was a difference between those two people, and each person got a different level of dopamine. So, I hope I'm making sense. The brain releases dopamine not from the activity itself, but it calculates your entire life and how fulfilled you are at the current moment. It takes into account your career, personal relationships, health, all of those things. If you do not really feel fulfilled in life, your brain is going to release less dopamine from the same activity. This is why when people say just focus on the small things, it does not really work, because if you feel unfulfilled in life, if you feel like you don't have a good life, doing an activity is not going to help you. Your brain refuses to do the thing it's supposed to do and release the dopamine, right? If you feel like you have a fulfilling life, your brain is going to do the calculations. It's going to take into account all of those parts of your life, and it will release more dopamine for the same exact activity, which it really sucks when you think about it. It's like your brain just refuses, your brain kind of refuses to make you feel happy, because it recognizes that there are certain areas of your life that are much bigger, and your brain wants you to focus on those areas and not on the small thing. So it just refuses to do what it's supposed to do. Now, that is exactly what happened to me, because even though I worked on achieving my goals, I also recognized the fact that I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and objectively looking at my life. And I thought about this. In fact, I said this to myself, this exact sentence. Of course I cannot feel happy. I'm nowhere near in life where I want to be. Of course I will not feel the small amounts of happiness that normally people do. And I started to fall into this state of like, well, will I even ever be happy? Because there's always more to achieve. Even if I achieve something, I don't really feel happiness. So where does this even take me? So now that we have learned how dopamine works, and in fact I feel like this is the reason why so many people are addicted to social media, because it is a cheap dopamine. Your brain refuses to release dopamine through regular tasks, so instead you're putting something that is just so overwhelming and something that is designed to keep you on the apps, and that is designed to give you the dopamine that you lack, and you end up scrolling for hours and hours on social media, searching for a funny video or something that will make you feel better, but chances are it will not even make you feel better. I no longer felt the dopamine from scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, right? In fact, I told myself, well, I could actually be putting the effort somewhere where it's useful, so why am I doing this, right? So, how to actually get out of this vicious cycle, because I also recognize that it will take me probably a couple of years to get where I want to be, and I don't even know if I can do it. That's the thing. I will show up for myself. I can put in all of the hard work. I can work on improving my life, myself did. Okay, think of it as like you're over here, right? And this is where you want to be. And now there are all those steps. What I did, the mistake I made, is I constantly thought about this place where I wanted to be. Instead of the small steps, I focused on the big picture. And the longer I focused on the big picture, the more ambitious I felt. But then the more overwhelmed I was, because that's what it will actually do to you. It will overwhelm you to the point I was unable to even take the actual steps on improving my life. Right now I was overwhelmed. I didn't feel happy. I was in this vicious cycle. So there's one thing that you can do, and that is to not think about the big picture anymore. This is what I did. Even when my brain wanted to think about the great things I could achieve, I prohibited myself from thinking about it. I said, nope, no. And instead what you can do is think about the step right in front of you. This will make a lot of sense in a second, I promise, okay? Just stay with me, okay? For a couple of minutes. So, focus on the step that is directly in front of you. That does not mean that you're giving up, right? Focus on the step that is right here. When you will think about only about the next step, and maybe you see progress towards it, or you achieve it, it will trick your brain into thinking, now I feel more fulfilled in life. Boom, and now it changes the equation a little bit, and it will release more dopamine. Because now your brain does not think about all the things that I have to do, and yes, even though this achievement is great, there's still like a long way to go. No, now your brain will focus on what you just achieved and be like, okay, we've done that. There you go, we feel fulfilled. Here's your dopamine. It's so strange how our brain works sometimes. But trust me, this is the only thing that actually helped me even before I found this study. Because I came up with this myself. I thought, I just cannot focus on the big picture anymore, right? Because at some point I recognized that I was making myself completely miserable by thinking only about what I want to achieve, right? It's so strange how our brain works sometimes, but it worked for me. And scientifically, oddly enough, it makes sense. Now, what do you do when there's no way you can actually take any steps towards progress? Because there are areas of our lives that there's nothing you can do. And there are no steps, right? It's just the way it is. This can be different for everyone, but trust me, I'm in that boat too. There is an area of my life, and I'm going to be very vulnerable right now, and I'll tell you, it has to do with my family. this is... I even feel sad telling you this because this is probably not what you wanted to hear. But if you recognize and really have to look at the situation objectively, you know your life best. I know my life best. I know what I can and cannot do. If you truly feel like you have played out all your cards and there's like no more options left, it's time to give up on that and take it out of the equation for the dopamine release that I talked about. You just have to force it out, and it's not an easy thing to do. In fact, if you can do it, you're probably one of the strongest people on earth, because it's so human of us to always feel hope about any situation, even if you don't want to admit it. Sometimes there is that little hope. But if you can at least minimize the impact of that area of your life that cannot be changed, then you're actually giving yourself a chance. Now you're giving yourself a chance in life to be happy, because chances are, if you don't do that, and now your brain will recognize that there's this like huge thing looming in the shadows that is making your life feel unfulfilling, it will unfortunately not release the dopamine that you need, and it will not be fully functional. And I just want to say one last thing. It is not your fault. If you have something in your life that is just unsolvable, it is not your fault. But maybe it is your responsibility for yourself and